Hi comrades and our international allies joining us from different fronts globally. My name is Ajambo Ashlin, a member of the Communist Party of Kenya, currently serving as the Secretary of Ideology and International Affairs. France is going through deep political crisis, and this political crisis stems from the economic crisis. The inflation rate in France has skyrocketed, affecting the workers and the poor people in France. It's been 3 decades and the France people are still under severe crisis, considering that the social achievements have been curtailed and even are being dismantled by the governments that have been in place. So today we are honored and privileged to have Comrade Arthur from the International Committee of the French Communist Party. He'll be shedding light and even giving perspective of the current situation and conditions in France, as well as telling us about the role of the French Communist Party in France. I am happy to introduce Comrade Arthur, so he'll tell us about himself.
Thank you, dear Comrade Ashlin, for organizing this event. So I'm Arthur, I'm a member of the French Communist Party and member of the International Committee of the French Communist Party, and I will be very happy to reply to all your questions.
The French Communist Party is relatively experienced after being formed back in 1920. And you know, what social elements make up the French Communist Party, and how has the organization evolved for it to become the exemplary party we know today?
So, as you said, yes, the French Communist Party was created in 1920, and it was created during the Tour Congress, which was organized by a political organization called at that time the French section of the Workers' International. And during this Congress, you have one part of this organization that wanted to join the Third International. This part, this split, this division led to the creation of the French Communist Party. So I would say that the backbone of the French Communist Party was definitely the industrial working class. The industrial working class that was very present at that time in major urban cities like Paris, Marseille, and in industrial regions of France, in the north, in the east of France, where we had a great industry and also a lot of mines. We had also rural workers, especially in the south of France, that joined at that time the Communist Party to improve their life conditions and their working conditions. Also, it is important to note that at that time we had a lot of women that joined the French Communist Party, because it is one of the, let's say, the major commitment of the French Communist Party for women's emancipation. And we had also artists, poets, painters, sculptors, writers, movie makers that joined the French Communist Party at that time. But what is important to say is that the French Communist Party was really rooted within the working class community, within the working class people. Our leaders were workers themselves. And this implantation within the working class allowed the French Communist Party to push forwards, to take the initiative, to impose its own policy, its own agenda at different parts of the French political history. So I will take an example. After the Second World War in France, France was economically devastated. And we had a coalition of political parties and organizations that led the struggle against Nazism in France during the Second World War, and the French Communist Party was very active in the struggle and the resistance against Nazism. So a coalition of political parties were created. In that coalition, it is interesting because you had radical left, but you had also a conservative movement. In that context, because the French Communist Party was strong, because we were the representative of the working class, we succeeded in creating the social security. So it was in 1945. And the social security is the most beautiful communist idea actually, that follow the principles that from each according to his ability, to each according to its needs. So it considers that the society as a whole should take the care and the responsibility of its members. And this is the social and the economical structure that serve the people. So basically through a system of payroll contribution, everyone, workers and firms, companies, factories, contributes to the social security system, and their workers, everyone, receive a social security through the form of healthcare, through the form of unemployment insurance, through the form of pension, through the form of family allowances, for example. So this beautiful idea was created thanks to the strength of the Communist Party, thanks to the fact that the Communist Party was rooted within the working class after the Second World War. This is one example, but I can make a list of several examples. For example, the nationalization of gas and electricity, the nationalization of energy. We believe that energy is actually a public good that needs to be controlled by the state and that need to be reachable for all the people. We have created workers' committees, for example, workers to gather inside their companies and to advocate their rights. Later it was the 39 hours of working per week after the 35 hours working per week. So all of that was possible because we had a very strong Communist Party. But as you perfectly know, as a Kenyan communist leader, we have a class struggle, we have a class war. And I have to say that the bourgeois is very strong at this thing. When we are thinking about the class struggle, the class war, we tend to think about people demonstrating on the street, like in Kenya right now or in France. But actually, the class struggle takes place most of the time in beautiful offices in big cities like Paris, London, New York. So I would say that after the fall of the Soviet Union, all the capitalist power, all the imperialism was unleashed. And that weakened all the communist parties throughout the world, and it weakens also the French Communist Party. At that period also came the liberalization of the economy, of the French economy. At that time also came the destructuration of the working class by the bourgeois power, with the invention of, I don't even have the name, startups, with the invention of self-entrepreneurship that makes people that believe that they are their own boss or that they possess their own tool of production, which is not the case, of course. So in that period, the capitalist class was very, very strong at that period. Development of neoliberalism, etc., etc. So the French Communist Party was weakened, as all the French Communist parties throughout the world. However, nowadays, the French Communist Party in France remains one of the most important political forces in France. We are one of the most important political forces, for example, in terms of members. And we have about 30 parliamentarians. So we still have a very strong political activity in France. And when it comes about fighting against imperialism, for example, because we are fighting about, a duty of communists is first to fight against the imperialism of your own country. So when it comes to fight about the French imperialism, when it comes to fight about advocating for the workers' rights, you can be sure that you still have a strong Communist Party in the Senate, in the National Assembly, in the cities also, which is very important because we have cities with communist mayors that are doing great stuff. So, and activist, member, militant. So every time capitalists and the bourgeois class know that they will find us on their way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comrade. And I'm happy you've talked about the character of the French Communist Party and highlighted on key issues such as the social security. So what is the analysis of the French Communist Party in the current situation in France? So the economy seems to have grown in recent times. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that it improves the lives of the workers, the poor, and also the struggling masses in France. So what role or what analysis can we draw from the French Communist Party?
Yeah, so as you perfectly know, France is definitely a capitalist country. So as a capitalist country, the accumulation of capital is used for the economical growth. All the economical growth that France is knowing has only benefit to a minority of the French population that are actually the capitalist class. And I just want to give you a figure to illustrate what I'm saying. Right now, in France in 2024, while we are knowing a strong inflation, while we have a strong unemployment rates, there has been 1 billion of euros of dividends distributed to the shareholders of the 40 biggest French companies. This is, I think this is 17% higher than in 2020. Mm-hmm. So we have a growth of benefits, a growth of the economy, a growth of the benefits, a growth of the profit, and of course the profit is absolutely not redistributed. The profit currently is distributed, indeed, but to the shareholders of the company, to the capitalist class. So we have this trend. We have this trend, which is a liberal capitalist trend. At the same time, as you say, it's been now 30 years that we are living in a strong liberalized economy, where every key sectors are being either privatized. I don't know if we say that, privatized. Yes. So every key sector are either privatized, either putting in competition with each others. The social security that I've been talking about just before are being weakened. We are trying to make economy on the back of the social security. The unemployment insurance is being weakened. The pensions are being weakened with the retirement age that is being pushed forward. The energy has been putting into competition, privatized. The transportation is being privatized. The healthcare is being privatized. So what we can draw as an analysis is that simply that all the economic growth in a capitalist country like France, we can extend to the other European country, certainly doesn't benefit to the working class, doesn't benefit the working class to improve their working condition and to improve their living condition, but only benefit to a small elite which possess all the capital.
Okay, so talking about the imperialist aggression, which is tightening in France, and for us it's really hard for us to understand the role of the left in Europe, you know, the radical left in Europe. But over the years, what has the French Communist Party done in terms of deepening ties and fostering more collaborations with other people's movements and organizations, could be in Africa, in the global south, and even in Europe, so as to make sure that we continue waging the revolutionary projects internationally?
So one of the core duty of communists when they live in an imperialist country is to fight against the imperialism of its own country. We are in 1925. The Communist Party is not even 5 years old. And at that time Morocco was colonized both by Spain and by France. And in the mountains of the Rif there was a Berber uprising. They say, all right, we want an independent republic, just go away from our country. Of course, the colonial France and the colonial Spain didn't let this republic settled. But at that time, the French Communist Party was 4 years old. And in solidarity with the uprising in the Rif Mountains, the French Communist Party, in link with the unions, triggered a general strike. And in October, you had 900,000 of workers on strike, blocking the economy of the countries, blocking the industry, blocking the trains, in solidarity with the uprising in the Rif Mountains of Morocco, for the independence of those people. There were, of course, severe repressions by the French government. One people was killed, and a lot of person was jailed. And Maurice Thorez, which would become one of the leader of the French Communist Party, spent 14 months in jail. So this event, at the creation of the Communist Party, was really a grounding event. The fact that the Communist Party, the DNA, to talk about like a postmodern, the DNA of the Communist Party is the struggle against imperialism. So after France is an imperialistic country, the French Communist Party also struggled alongside the population of Syria during the Great Syria Revolt in 1925. We struggle also for the independence of Algeria with the independentist movement. During the Indo-Chinese War, because France was also a colonial power in Asia, in Vietnam, the French Communist Party and the trade unions organized the blockade in the port to prevent France to send weapons to that countries to help the local resistance to the French colonial power. And in Africa, in West Africa, for example, the French Communist Party built, since the very beginning, very strong ties with all the independent and revolutionary movement there. For example, at the dawn of the independence, when France started to withdraw from the Western Africa, of course the French government didn't want to completely withdraw from Western Africa. They wanted to keep their hand through military powers, through the control of the currency, for example. And the French Communist Party, the French Communist parliamentarians were the only one in the Senate, in the National Assembly, to fiercely opposed against this control of the French Empire over the ex-French colony through military, through currency, etc. We are asking, the French Communist Party is asking the withdrawal of the French troops in the Sahel region right now. And we have very strong ties with our comrades from all over the world. We have international sector, and we have parliamentarians that are in the Senate and in the National Assembly, inside the International Affairs Committee of those two institutions. And every time we have to struggle against imperialism in general, but also against the imperialism in France, we do it. We do it. So we try to build, we try to find common ground, like how we can fight together on specific terms. And in Western Africa, for example, we had a lot of common fights with the ex-French colony about the currency, as I told you. the fact that we need to free those countries from the blockage of their currency right now, which is linked to the French one. So this is it has always been very important. I believe now that not only for the French Communist Party but for all the Communist Party all across the planet, we need to strengthen our links. We need to find a platform where we can share our struggle, where we can fight together. This is about that, after all. This is about the class war is universal. We cannot win separately. We have to win collectively. For that we need to know each other, we need to speak each other, we need to understand each other, because even if we have the same interest, we don't have the same history. So it's very important to have and to start to build a real and effective platform where all the Communist Party can gather, talk and lead the struggle together. And we have some work to do, but we will do it. And we are working for that.
Yes, indeed. Our struggle is, international.
International, yes.
Yeah. So, taking you back to the internal struggles within the country, what is your evaluation of the political changes happening in France at the moment, especially after the elective politics and the state of government also? Because after the parliamentary elections, we get that the left coalition defeated the far right-wing coalition. So how is the balance of power at the moment with the now government?
Yeah. So during the last election this year, we saw, but it's not a new phenomenon, it's a phenomenon that we have been observing through years, a rise of the far right, an important rise of the far right. And facing this rise of the far right, the leftist political party decided, not only the leftist political party, because there was also associations and unions joining this union. So the leftist political party, seeing the rise of the far right, decided to form a big coalition. We called that big coalition le Nouveau Front Populaire, which is the new Popular Front. I just want to tell you why this name was chosen, why the name Popular Front was chosen. It is actually an historical reference of a very important event that happened in France in the 1934, 1936 after, and a very important event for the French left. In 1934, we had the Fascist and the Royalist League that gathered themselves and tried to surround the parliaments. Facing this rise of fascism and royalism and extremism in France, at that time, the left decided to create a coalition with over 100 organizations. And at that time, the left coalition with the Communist Party, which was strong at that time, the leftist coalition acceded to the power. And so it was in 1936. So we accessed to the power because of this coalition against the far right. And while we were in power at that time, we gained major social achievements. For example, the paid holiday for workers. For example, the week of 40 hours of work. Before it was 48 hours of work. We gained the nationalization of very important sectors of our industry. So facing this threat, we gathered and we gained social conquest, as we say in France, social conquest. So we saw the situation as equivalent. So we decided to gather. And indeed, we won. The thing is that we don't have the absolute majority, but we have the majority. We still have the majority. And France is in a political system where the French president appoints a prime minister and a government. And the government is validated by the National Assembly. If the French president doesn't have the majority in the National Assembly, the National Assembly cannot validate its government. But we have a democratic tradition. The democratic tradition is that the main group at the National Assembly should lead the country. This is not what the president wants. Of course, this is not what the president wants, because the new Popular Front has a radical program to block the prices of food, which has skyrocketed, the prices of energy, which has skyrocketed also with the privatization of the sectors. We want to increase salaries and we want to increase minimum wages. So we have a radical program which is not suitable for the actual president, which follows a real capitalist policy and who serves the interest of the capitalist class. Now, we couldn't see the victory of the left as a total victory, because at the other side we have a strong extreme right, and we have to be honest with ourselves. Who is voting for the extreme right? This is a big part of the working class. Big part of the working class right now in France, in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, in Britain, in United Kingdom, are working for the working class. So for us, for the radical left movement, it's a big red signal, you know, we have to do something. Maybe our strategy was not the best, you see? Maybe the capitalist forces are having a strategy right now, because, you know, in France we have a deep economical crisis. A lot of people cannot eat, or they eat only one meal a day. 17 million of French person lives in an energetic precarity. If you live in the French countryside, for example, and you want to see, if you want to see an ophthalmologist because you have a problem, sometimes you have to wait more than 1 year because of the lack of doctors. You know? If you are in the countryside, you are a woman and you want to deliver, sometimes you don't have any hospital. You have to drive for 2 hours to find an hospital and to find a maternity. And the bourgeois class, of course, saw that French people are now feeling in their flesh the capitalist crisis. What would they say? They would say, but look, the problem, your problem, of course it's not capitalism, your problem is the migrants. The problem is the migrants, the poor migrants that are running away from the misery and that are running away from the war, the same misery and the same war, which were triggered by the imperialistic powers, by the capitalist powers, by the same people that we are in power right now in France, in Syria, in Libya, for example. And they say, okay, look at these migrants. He is taking your job. He is taking your family alliances. This is his fault, you know. This is his fault. And this speech is winning through the society. Is winning through the society. Hopefully, we still have a strong leftist movement. The proof is that we arrived to win the majority at the National Assembly. So now we are in this situation in France when we have to produce a counter speech to say the foreign workers which is in France, it's not your enemy. You share exactly the same interest with the foreign workers who is fleeing misery, you know? You are sharing absolutely the same interest. And when we are talking about all the money, all the benefits that the biggest companies are hiding inside fiscal paradise, when they don't pay taxes, all of that money, which is more than, I don't know, 80 billions of euros per year, all of that money can be invested in social infrastructure, can be invested in education, can be invested in a good health system, you know? It's not the migrants who is fleeing misery, who is most of the time exploited by the capitalists, by the French capitalist class, which is your problem. Your problem is capitalism, and we need to fight against capitalism. So this is the dynamic that we are facing right now, not only in France, in Germany, in Spain, in Italy, in Great Britain.
Yes, and interestingly, you've talked about the narratives, the prejudices and propaganda that is fueled on or imposed on the people so that they can divert their attention on the real issues affecting them. And you also spoke about the strategies and how best can we change them so that they can suit our needs. I know you've been in the country and you've participated in the ongoing protest of the young people. For us, we draw a lot of inspiration from France. Knowing that the heroic people in France fought, actually the poor and the workers in France fought for the good of the entire population. But currently you're saying, the majority of the people in France are voting, for the kind of...
For the reactionary bourgeois forces.
Yes. So what can you say, how can you link our struggles here in Kenya and those in France in terms of the tactic we are using? Yes, our sites, like the streets is one of our sites of our struggle here in Kenya, but it's not the only one. But you've also interacted with our cadres and, so how can you give a comparison of these two very different countries?
Yes. So first, I have to say that I'm really impressed by the work doing by the Communist Party of Kenya, and we have a lot to learn from what you are doing currently, because as you said, you are not only on the streets, but you are also within the population through, for example, the Justice Center. Which is it is the Justice Center, right?
Yeah, the Social Justice
Center. The Social Justice Center, which is across the country, and which try to politicize also the social problems that people in Kenya have. If you don't have access to water in one place, this problem, it's purely politics. You need to address the politicians, and it's not only with the NGOs, for example, that are here to dig a dam, or I don't know, to dig to dig a dam or whatever, that you will solve the problem. The problem is really political. So I think that this work inside of these centers are very, 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 very important. Also, you have, I've witnessed in Kenya the People Assembly. How do you call this assembly in Swahili?
Bunge la Wananchi.
Yeah, which is is it something which is institutionalized?
No, actually, it's organic from the people. Yeah. So it's more of alternative parliaments, which are people centered and only highlight people politics. It's more of their own. Yeah. So
these places are very important also for the Communist Party of Kenya to advocate a policy, to advocate a vision of what politics should do.
Yeah.
We are facing a problem in France, and you are facing the same problem in Kenya, is now the lack of the industry. Before, when France was an industrial country, because now, all the industry are being delocalized to other countries because they want to exploit a cheap workforce. Before, the industry were the place where the Communist Party could struggle. Now the industry went away. We have some place where the struggle takes place, however. It can be in urbanized center, for example, in the suburbs around big city, when you have a concentration of poor workers and poor unemployed people. So the presence of the French Communist Party within this community is very important. It can be, I don't know, through associations. It can be a political presence when the French Communist Party is present in a city council, for example. We have also in the countryside large parts of a country which is far away from all the urban centers, and they are very far away from public services, hospital, educations, and we need also to be present in those kind of place through associations, through political commitments. And we still have a working class of France. Even if the working class doesn't have the same face as the working class in France in the 60s, we still have a class of people who only have their hands, their brains as a way of making a life. So now would be like the Uber deliveries, like in Kenya. Uber deliveries, Uber drivers. It will be the employees. It would be also the people working for the states, like the teachers, the doctors, the nurses. All of those people are being oppressed by a liberal state which is trying to get money on the back of the people. So when I say that, of course, I believe that really something is possible. Regarding your question, if there is some link that we can make between France and Kenya, some struggle that we can share, of course there is a lot of struggle that we can share. I'm just taking an example. It's not about France, it's about Germany. Germany and Kenya. So Germany and Kenya has made a deal, tell me if I'm wrong or don't hesitate to correct me, but Germany and Kenya has made a deal that allows German capital to flow in Kenya without any taxes, with a lot of facility, and in exchange it's easier for the Kenyan brain to go in Germany and to work in Germany in the, I think, highly qualified field. I think this kind of struggle can be led together. We can have a common understanding on what's happening here, on how the capital works, on how the imperialism works. This is the kind of struggle that we can lead, and we can think about that together. Yeah. This is the kind of thing. And you have that with Germany, but you have that with, the world is more and more interdependent, so this kind of situations happen more and more. And here we have a common ground of fighting, which is a common ground, which is maybe a gate of, one of the different gate of entry towards the fight against imperialism. This is this kind of situation, but we have a lot of other situations like ecological struggle also that we can fight together. But we have, and as I say, imperialism only benefit from a small minority. So we have common fight. We have bridge to create.
Yeah. I am happy you've talked about what can be done now and how we can link our struggles. So even as we finalize, what are your prospects for the French Communist Party and France? And even our relations, how can where do you see us in maybe the next 2 years?
2 years?
Yes, or
the next 2 years. Where do I see us?
Yes.
It's difficult to say.
Yeah, because the struggle is dynamic, so things keep on changing. But so what do you think are the prospects of our struggle in the upcoming years? So as to not separate it, not make it only for France, but overall.
So I think we are coming at one point where the world is becoming so interdependent. So a little thing that happened in China, for example, that happened in the United States, can have a major impact on the rest of the world. So countries are being more and more interdependent. Saying that, I think that this interdependency can benefit from the common struggle, from the common fight, for the war, for the class war, the universal class war. So I believe that even if we don't force ourselves to get in touch together, to struggle together, to fight together, to get to know each other, the reality will come back in a very, very violent way, and will remind us in the most violent way that the only possibility that we have is to connect the revolutionary forces and to fight together. So let's say that I'm optimistic in the way that at one point we won't have any choice. I'm pessimistic because I think that at this point the thing will get very violent.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Comrade Arthur.
Thank
it
you
was
very much.
nice hearing your perspective on different issues. To our viewers and comrades, we are happy that you guys could join us today. And as Comrade Arthur said, it's high time we go beyond just having analysis of our concrete conditions and connect and even start answering and addressing the issues that are facing our people for us to make the struggle universal. So it's that from me, Ajambo Ashlin, and Comrade Arthur from the French Communist Party.